Well, the Prime Minister joins me now. Obviously, we have to kick off with this. It's such a divisive issue, immigration, isn't it? You've been accused of deception. That is a pretty serious accusation. How do you...
Well, it's simply not right, actually. When Steve Hilton left Downing Street in 2012, net immigration, had actually fallen quite substantially. It had got down to, just after he left, about 154,000, so not far away from the ambition that I set. But look, there are good ways of controlling immigration, and my welfare break, saying that people who come and work here have to work here for 4 years before they get full access to our welfare system. That's a good way. But pulling out of the single market, wrecking our economy, that is a bad way. And it's not often you get, you know, a Tory Prime Minister on your show saying, look at the Daily Mirror. You know, there we are. That's the USDOR, the Shop Workers Union, saying supermarket bills up £580 a year if we leave. So it's an interesting morning. You've got the Shop Workers Union warning about prices if we leave. Yeah. You've got Richard Branson, probably Britain's most respected businessman, saying we're stronger and safer and better off if we stay. You've got George Soros, the international financier, warning about a Black Friday if we leave. So I think the weight of evidence is on the side of remaining to keep our economy strong and to keep Britain's families financially secure.
Immigration keeps being the issue that is so divisive. It is the issue that could lose it for you. It's the one that people feel most passionate about. You know, and maybe they're wrong, maybe they're right.
No,
but
I think people are right to see that immigration is an important issue, and it is a challenge to control it. But the wrong way to control it is to leave the EU, leave the single market, and see jobs and livelihoods and Britain's families suffer. That would not be a sensible thing to do. Now, more than half of immigration comes from outside the EU. We need to do better at controlling that. But above all, I think what Thursday's vote about is stay in the European Union. We can keep our economy moving forward. We can create jobs and opportunities for our young people. Leave the EU, and I think we do face very serious economic difficulties. And I've been criticised in this campaign for making these warnings about our economy. And yet today you see, you know, Richard Branson, George Soros, Mr. Rubini, the only economist who really predicted the last global meltdown, he's saying, along with dozens of other economists, this would be a mistake for Britain.
It's got very toxic, and I think people have got actually quite fed up with all of that. So it was yesterday good to see a pause in all of this, as everybody remembered Joe Cox and people came together. I think that was important. It was almost like a healing.
It was. It was one of the most moving things I've seen in the House of Commons. A husband's lost a loving wife, and you know, it just breaks your heart to see that happen. Do you worry about I mean, I know that you've obviously got protection as Prime Minister, but you must worry about your own safety, safety of your family, safety of your political colleagues, you know, everyone. And you look at what's happened in the past few hours in America. Somebody, a 19-year-old Brit, we understand, allegedly tried to wrestle a weapon from a police officer and said he wanted to assassinate Donald Trump at a rally in Vegas. It is a clear and present danger, isn't it, if you're in public eye? So what do you do? Well, as Prime Minister, obviously, I get a lot of security and protection. I think we'll have to look very carefully at other MPs and ask some questions about, do they get the right security advice? Is there more we can do? But I think it is very important to recognise part of the strength of our system is that our politicians are out there with the public, accountable to the public. We all hold constituency surgeries. I still do that, and people come and talk about problems with benefits or housing or leaky roofs or noisy neighbours or whatever. And actually that's important because the Prime Minister needs to hear firsthand about these things rather than sit in some lofty office. So I hope we can keep our politics as it is, knowing that there's always risks in life, but let's see if we can have some better security and intelligence as we do so.
That's good to hear. That is very good to hear. And it's good to hear today there was some sort of a bit more positive points of view, if you like. I mean, Michael Gove said on Good Morning Britain earlier on that you can keep your job regardless of what happens. Whether it's in or out, you can stay.
Well, it's not about my job. I mean, this is about the jobs of thousands of people in our country. Yesterday, I went to visit a whole series of companies that make parts for the Minis cars that we export. 44 out of every 100 go to Europe. And these are people's jobs that are on the line. If we leave the single market, it's a market of 500 million people, that's where we sell almost half of the goods and services that we export. If we cut ourselves off from that market and get less good terms in that market, our economy will be smaller, jobs will be fewer, pay will be affected. If the pound falls, prices will go up. These are not just warnings from me. You've got the Governor of the Bank of England, you've got the OECD, you've got these experts and economists this morning, and people saying don't listen to the experts. It's a bit, you wouldn't get into a car if you thought the brakes were faulty and the mechanic was saying, you know, the steering's gone. And so I hope people will stop and think very seriously about what's best for our economy, for jobs, and what's best for our children. That's really what this is about.
No, that's true.
They're going to have to live with this decision that we make.
And in that sense, then, there must be a part of you that wishes that you'd never actually gone on this road at all, because it was almost like a knee-jerk reaction to UKIP. And we don't actually have to be in this, and it has been for all of us. I think all of us are just really wanting to get to the end of the week and it can be over.
Of course, I think everyone wants to get to decision day and to make the decision and then move on. But I think it is right. There are some questions that are so big, I think it's right to ask the public, people, to answer them rather than just politicians. We've been having this debate in Britain about Europe for years, and it has changed quite a lot since the 1970s when we last had a vote. And I think we should have confidence in our democracy and say, look, the people are going to give the politicians an instruction, stay in, which is what I hope, or get out, be on our own, and we'll have to accept that instruction.
How do you think it's going to go? I mean, is this keeping you awake at night, or are you quietly confident?
I think nobody knows, because
too close to call,
there's only, as they say, there's only one opinion poll that counts. And I would just urge people to get out and vote. It is your future, your children's future, grandchildren's future that we're voting on. Very moving statement today from David Beckham, talking about his children and saying how, you know, effectively, what he said to me was, you know, you can't win in Europe unless you're on the pitch. And that's true. I worry about that as Prime Minister. I know that we sit around the table and make decisions about security and safety and fighting terrorism and all the rest of it, fighting climate change. And if we leave, they don't stop meeting and making decisions that affect us, but they'll be making decisions about us, but without us in the room, and that would be bad for Britain. So I'm going to be urging people today, in the clearest way I can, that there's a very positive future if we stay, but I really worry about the consequences if we leave.
Prime Minister, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.